Good morning. Enjoying this glorious morning outside on my porch, deck, whatever you call it. And spending some time with the Lord and feeling like He has something to say that He wants me to say. And so I am going to share and pray that I do it justice. Pray that my thoughts are in order so that I don't ramble. The other night I was with Johnny laying in bed, like we were talking and praying, and I just felt led to go to Revelation. I think it was 12:2. But the part that stuck out was how do we overcome the enemy is by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, and not loving life so much that we fear death. So I was breaking that down and explaining that to him, which helped me a lot. And, the blood of the Lamb, Yeshua, people know him as Jesus. But Yeshua is his original Hebrew name, so that's why I prefer to call him by that. So the blood of the Lamb, the word of the testimony, our testimony, and not living our lives so much that we fear death. So the blood of the Lamb, Yeshua did what we couldn't. He did what we couldn't. The word of our testimony. When I was writing the book, I was thinking, who cares what happened to me about my life? But it's not about me. The testimony is in the miracles that God supplied, the miracles that He did, the signs and wonders, and the amazing awesomeness of who He is in my life. And that's the testimony, and it helps other people to realize, oh, man, I didn't know God would do that kind of thing in our lives. I didn't know He was that intimate with us. I didn't know, He would make that happen. I didn't know He would pay our bills even though we weren't working, because He told me to, not because that was my decision. I didn't want to do that. But I enjoyed the 3 years that I had with my kids. And then, the supplying water and bananas and just even the little bitty intricate details of how intimate He was in my story might help people to really see that He wants to be that intimate with them. He wants to be that involved in their lives. And so the word of our testimony defeats the enemy because it encourages and it makes people see different pieces of our Heavenly Father that maybe they didn't realize before. And so, if they're not willing to read the Bible or go to church or listen to sermons or whatever, if they hear someone else's testimony, maybe they'll realize that there is this Heavenly Father that wants to have a relationship with them. So then, not living our lives so much that we fear death. And this is something that I've really wanted to encourage Johnny in because of this fear of drowning. And he loves the pool so much. He has so much joy in that pool. But there's this terrified fear of drowning that just torments him. And, he almost started crying talking about it because he was just like, I wanted to fight that fear. And he said, I just stood in the corner watching my friends dive in and do spins underwater and do all these things that look so fun, and I wanted to do them, but I just stood in the corner just terrified. But as I tried to fight the fear, I had more and more fun. And I was just like, that's such a testimony to this life that we live right now, especially what's going on right now. And this is not new. I mean, there's been, these waves of fear every year. There's something the media wants us to fear. And I think the powers that be believe that there is control in fear. They can control us with fear. And so, not loving our lives so much that we fear death gives us freedom to do what God's called us to do without worrying about dying. Because, I mean, look at the end result. I mean, not that I encourage anyone to bring it on quicker than they should. We have a purpose here on earth that we need to fulfill. But like with dying, you go to heaven. And as far as we, understand and believe, I mean, and that sounds wonderful. That sounds awesome. So what is there to fear in that? It's, leaving people behind, and people be like, oh, how sad, his life was so cut so short, or he was so young, or she was so beautiful, or she was so talented. And it's like, she's not losing, he's not losing. They may have lost their life on earth, but they gained eternity and in heaven, hopefully. But that's just the thing, like, really, it's us. When someone passes away, it's us that loses, them being in our blink of an eye eternity, life here. And if we don't fear our lives, we don't love our lives here on earth so much that we fear death. If that's the case, then that opens us up to freedom. And because it's the fear of dying that keeps us from living. My professor from JBU, John Brown, read my book and gave me a review, and he said, there's such a sense of encouragement, a voice of encouragement, but he said you weren't just encouraging, you were encouraging people to truly live and not just to not die. Like, live. Whatever God has called you to do, whatever he has purposed in your life to do. I mean, do we even fully know? I'm 37, and I don't know everything. I have gotten glimpses and pieces of a vision of purpose for my life, but some days it feels like I'm not living it, I'm not doing it, and I get down in the dumps. But God reminds me, like, it feels long to us on here on earth, but it's not long. It's really, really short, and 100 years is nothing compared to eternity. And so I think the enemy really tries to get us with fear so that we will just sit still. So we'll just try to make ourselves happy or make those around us happy, or, we try to be safe. But a life with God's not safe. And, especially since March of 2020, I have been on this like pursuit of the truth. And there's so much information out there at our fingertips with Google, with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. There's so much information out there. And, my friend and I were joking about how, we're spending thousands of dollars in our education to learn, like professionally how to do what we feel called to do. And these, influencers are posting videos of the right way to do things when they have not been taught. They're going off of their gut, right? They're going off of what they've learned in life or what they feel. And it may be right. It may be wrong. I don't know. But the point is like, there's so much information. Like, I'm trying to take better care of myself. And, don't eat breakfast first. And, you fast until 1, and that's better for your body. And then there are people saying, are you kidding me? Eat the moment you wake up. You've got to set your metabolism in motion. You got to drink that water and eat that fruit or whatever or something. And, and then there's people saying, like, this is better to eat this way. No, it's better to eat this way. And you've got to do this kind of workouts. No, that's horrible for you. That does this to your body. And women with hormones need to do this for their body. And I'm just like, y'all, there's so much information. How am I supposed to know what's real? Yes, I can trial and error for sure. But, with me, it's like, how long is the trial got to be? 2 weeks? 2 months? Like, how do I know what works? And then I've spent 2 months frustrating myself on something that's not working. And then that's when you want to give up, right? So it's just kind of like, God, what is the truth? And it's not even just that kind of stuff. There's stuff about the Bible coming out and Jesus or Yeshua, and how the letter J didn't even exist until 500 years ago. So there's like, where did they even come up with the name Jesus? And, then there's like the fear of questioning. But it's like, God gave us a critical mind to question. If we aren't supposed to question, then we're just slaves. If we're supposed to take everything in as truth blindly, not like childlike faith, that's not what I mean, but blindly, without critically thinking, then we're just slaves. And that's not what God wanted. He created us to be his children, to love him unconditionally without being forced to. And I just feel like it's so hard to understand what's true and what's not. And so I've really been been pursuing God for revelation. But, not deception. Making very clear, obviously God's not going to. Anyway, I'm making it very clear that I don't want to be deceived. I want truth. The word says that you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. You got to know it for it to set you free. How do I know what the truth is? There's just so much information out there that is like, no, this is right, y'all. This is right. Why have you been believing something else? They all say that. They all believe their way is right. So how do I know? And this quote popped in my mind, and I think it's Maya Angelou, and I didn't know her personally, so I don't know if she was, because now everybody's like, Columbus was bad and whatever. So I don't know her cause, what she was really, motivation was doing. But what I do know is I felt that quote resonate within me of do what you know to do. And then when you know better, do better. So I feel like we're responsible for what we know. I know I've read that in the word. We're responsible for what we know. And so if we know, if we think we know we're on the right path, then I think seeking God for the truth without letting fear of the unknown wreck us. It's God doesn't want us to fear. That I believe 100%. That we're not supposed to fear. And I think when it says fear God, it means honor him and a reverent honor. And I mean, why would he say, don't fear anything, but then fear me? It's like, if he's such this perfect, awesome, wonderful father, I can't imagine his children wanting to fear him. I think he wants us to honor him. And I think it honors him by seeking him and seeking his truth and only wanting him to tell us. Because there's lots of voices out there clamoring for our attention and for our, belief. And there was this, I don't know who said this, and I don't know how long it's been out there, and it could be whatever, but it made sense to me that it's easier to convince someone of a lie than it is to convince them they've been lied to. And that I have seen. That makes sense. I've seen that. I just want to pray for everybody today for God to reveal his truth and to denounce the lies of the enemy, and pray that the scales fall from off our eyes of what we thought we believed to be true that wasn't. I pray that we see the truth, that God reveals the truth to us. That's been a cry of my heart for at least a year and a half, I guess, because it's like never thought about how much information's out there. And maybe what worked for this one person isn't working for someone else as far as like food and exercise goes. But like, you know, I want the truth for me. I want the truth of what's going on behind closed doors and what's my job. But, you know, my fight is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of darkness. And how do you do that? Through prayer and worship. So, you know, I was, when Johnny and I were talking about that, we talked about fear. And the word says that his perfect love casts out all fear. And it says that he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and power and a sound mind. So he's not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, because his perfect love casts out all fear. Power, because we have power and authority over the enemy. And a sound mind, because a wrecked mind is how the enemy tries to get us. You know, just anxiety and fear and confusion and whatever else, you know, the reckless, I mean, not reckless, but like the restless mind, you know, is how the enemy can just make us spiral out of control. So a sound mind, love, power, and a sound mind are the opposite of fear. And, you know, that is one thing that we pray over us a lot is you've not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and power and a sound mind. Your perfect love casts out all fear. And we tear down every stronghold that exalts itself above the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Because if that thought is held in captivity to the obedience of Christ, well, what does Christ have to say about that? You know, it says that I am a child of the Most High King. I'm royalty. I am the head and not the tail. I am above and not beneath. I am first and not last. I am not the scum of the earth. I am not, you know, this piece of crap that doesn't deserve to live or doesn't deserve happiness. That's not who I am. That's not what God says that I am. You know, he says that I am his masterpiece. I am his workmanship. I was fearfully and wonderfully made, and he knew me in my mother's womb. He created me with a purpose, for a purpose, on purpose, not by accident. So even though my parents may not have been expecting to have another child, doesn't mean God didn't know that was going to happen. You know, my creator is the one who created me on purpose, for a purpose. So that's just something that, you know, I've been mulling on a few days and felt like the Lord wanted me to share because there's so much fear and information out there right now. I mean, so much information, and we have to seek the truth, which is God. That's it. He's the truth. And if it's not from him, it's not of him, and it's not for us. That's one black and white thing that we can be sure of. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of stuff that's like, well, you know, I don't know about that. And, you know, and I'm really delicate to speak in definites, but like a big thing is if it's not of God, I don't want it. Period. And I think there's a lot of things that are of God that we don't know, that we don't realize. You know, I just think, you know, people try to make things too spiritual and don't realize that going for a walk, you know, going to New York City because it brings me so much joy, you know, he gave me that. And there's nothing spiritual in that for me or for him. I wasn't doing him any good doing that. So anyway, that's in my book. I love you guys, and I pray for you today, and I pray for myself and for my boys that we find the truth, and the truth will set us free.